In the glitzy haze of Montecito's sun-drenched hills, where palm trees swayed lazily against the back #K-drop of multimillion-dollar estates, Meghan Markle sat in her sprawling home office, her phone buzzing incis #Santley on the glass desk. The room was a vision of curated #Gants, white walls adorned with abstract art, a gold-framed vision board pinned with inspirational quotes, and a vase of fresh peonies that perfumed the air. Yet, beneath #E polished veneer of her life, a storm was brewing, one that threatened to upend the fairy tale she had crafted with Prince #I. Meghan's fingers hovered over her phone, her manicured nails catching the light hashtag as she scrolled through a string of encrypted messages. They weren't from her husband, nor from her #team at Art Jewel, but from a man whose name carried the weight of unimaginable wealth, Khalid Al-Mansur, a Saudi billionaire whose oil empire spanned continents. His words were bold, unrelenting, and laced with a charm that made her pulse quicken. "Leave it all behind, Meghan," one message read. "A life beyond your wildest dreams #awaits." It wasn't the first time Khalid had reached out. Their paths had crossed 6 months ago at a high-profile charity gala in Dubai, where Meghan had been invited as a keynote speaker on women's empowerment. Harry had stayed behind in California, citing a scheduling conflict, but Meghan had dazzled the room in a sleek, emerald green gown that hugged her frame. Khalid, with his sharp jawline, tailored Bryony suit, and a watch that cost more than most people's homes, had been impossible to ignore. He had approached her after her speech, his dark eyes glinting with something more than professional admiration. "You're wasted in that small life," he'd said his voice low and deliberate. "You were born for more." At the time, Meghan had laughed it off, deflecting his intensity with her practiced charm, but his woe #RDS had lingered, burrowing into her thoughts during the quiet moments when Harry was asleep, and the weight of their public life pressed down on her. The relentless scrutiny, the tabloid headlines, the endless negotiations with Netflix and Spotify, it was exhausting. Hawaii, for all his devotion, seemed content to coast on their shared narrative of rebellion against the monarchy, but Meghan craved something bigger, something that matched the ambition that had propelled her from a supporting role on #Suits to a global stage. Khalid's pursuit had a scarlet head in the weeks that followed. Private jets sent to whisk her to exclusive events, invitations to his palatial estates in Riyadh and the French Riviera, and gifts that arrived discreetly at her Montecito doorstep. A diamond-encrusted bracelet, a rare first edition of Toni Morrison's Beloved, even a custom-designed gown from a Parisian atelier. Each gesture a calculated move, a reminder of the life he could offer, one unbound by the constrained #TS of royal protocol or public expectation. Khalid wasn't just wealthy, he was a force, a man who bent the world #is will. And he wanted her. Meghan leaned back in her chair, her eyes drifting to the framed photo of her and Harry on their wedding day. His boyish rin, her radiant smile, it felt like a lifetime ago. The truth was, their marriage had been fraying at the edges for months. Harry's insistence on living a quieter life clashed with her relentless drive for impact. He wanted to retreat, to focus on their children, Archie and Lilibet, while she dreamed of building an empire rivaled Oprah. Their arguments, once rare, had become a nightly ritual, his voice tinged with frustration as he accused her of chasing fame, hers sharp with accusations that he didn't understand her vision. "You don't get it, Harry," she'd snapped during their last fight, her voice echoing through their cavernous living room. "I didn't leave one cage, just to step into another." He'd looked at wounded, his blue eyes searching for the Oman he'd fallen in love with. "What cage, Meg? We have everything. What more do you want?" She hadn't answered, but the question had haunted her. What did she want? Freedom. Power. A stage where she could finally be the star, not the supporting act. Khalid's messages offered a tantalizing answer. He'd #DNTC her as Prince Harry's wife, or the Duchess of Sussex. He saw her as Meghan, the woman #O could command any room, any empire. Her phone buzzed again, pulling her from her thoughts. Another message from Khalid. I'm in LA Tomo Row. Meet me. One conversation could change everything. Her heart raced, a mix of fear and exhilaration. She typed a quick reply, I'll think about it, and hit send before she could second-guess herself. The next morning, Meghan woke early, slipping out of bed before Harry stirred. She stood in front of her closet, her fingers trailing over the rows of designer dresses, each one a testament to the life she'd built. She chose a sleek black pantsuit, sharp and commanding, and paired it with stilettos that clicked authoritatively on the hardwood floor. As she applied her makeup, she caught her reflection in the mirror, poised, polished, but #th a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. She told Harry she'd as meeting a producer in LAT discuss a new actual project. He nodded, distracted by a call from his environmental charity, and kissed her absent-mindedly on the cheek. The lie sat heavy in her chest as she drove down the Pacific Coast Highway, the ocean glittering to her left, her mind racing with possibilities. Khalid was waiting for her at a private rooftop lounge in Beverly Hills, a space reserved exclusively for the elite. The view was breathtaking. Los Angeles sprawled beneath them, a city of dreams and deals. He stood as she approached, his presence commanding the room without effort. Meghan, he said, his voice warm and smooth, you look like you are ready to conquer the world. She smiled, settling into the plush chai #R across from him. I'm just here to talk, Khalid. He leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. And yet, you're here. That tells me everything. Their conversation stretched for hours, a dance of words that felt both dangerous and intoxicating. Khalid spoke of his Vision, a global media empire with Meghan at its helm, a platform where her voice could shape narratives and inspire millions. He promised her creative control, unlimited resources, and a life where she answered to no one. You're just a duchess, he said, his hand brushing hers lightly. You're a queen. And I can give you a kingdom. Meghan felt the pull of his words, the allure of a life where she could finally be free of the royal shadow, the tabloid vitriol, the constant compromises. But as she listened, her thoughts drifted to Harry, to his laughter, his unwavering support, the way he looked at her when they were alone, stripped of titlers and cameras. Could she really leave him? Could she walk away from the life they'd built, flawed as it was? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in hues of gold and pin #K, Meghan stood to leave. Khalid rose with her, his hand lingering on her arm. Think about it, Meghan, he said softly. You deserve more than a life in someone else's story. She drove home in silence, her mind a battlefield of ambition and lawyer #LTY. When she walked through the door, Harry was waiting, a glass of wine in hand, a tentative smile on his face. Good meeting, he asked. She nodded, her throat tight. Yeah. It was illuminating. That night, as her #RY slept beside Meghan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Khalid's words echoed in her mind, a siren call to a life she'd always dreamed of. But as she looked at Harry, his face softened in sleep, she felt the weight of their shared history, the battles they'd fought, the love that had carried them through. Leaving him would mean leaving a part of herself, the part that had chosen him over everything else. The next morning, she deleted Khalid's messages, her fingers trembling as she blocked his number. She wasn't ready to give up on Harry not yet. As she stood in her office, the peonies now wilting in their vase, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted,